I spent 15 years hiding the truth. Tonight, at the family reunion, they'll finally learn the truth. What they never knew about me will change everything. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Here, I share stories inspired by Reddit topics about family, friends, and life. Today's story is about a character who has been underestimated by their family for years. Someone they've always seen as a failure. Have you ever been judged or doubted by those closest to you? Stick around to the end to see how this character proves everyone wrong and finally takes control of their destiny. Don't forget to help me reach 1,000 subscribers so I can continue sharing more amazing stories with you. It's funny how the world views success like a flashy, loud parade, all gold and glitz. But the truth? It's often quiet, hidden beneath layers of judgment, doubt, and assumptions. I had always played the role of the black sheep, the one who didn't fit in, the one who was just going through a phase or too idealistic to survive in the real world. My name is Vanessa Sinclair, and for 15 years, I've let my family think I was barely scraping by. It wasn't that I was struggling. It was that I had something bigger in mind, something they couldn't see, at least not yet. It all started when I first ventured into the world of digital art. Yeah, I know, it sounds like a joke. Back then, in my small Brooklyn apartment, it felt like I was just throwing away my degree in finance for a hobby, as my father liked to call it. And for the first few years, I did what they expected. I played the part of the struggling artist, driving my old beat-up Honda, living off whatever savings I had, and receiving endless, encouraging lectures from my parents about getting a real job. But none of them knew that while I was struggling, I was building something that would eventually disrupt the entire digital art industry. I had just sold my first NFT collection for $50,000. My family had no idea, and I wasn't about to let them in on it. At least not until the time was right. That time came exactly 15 years later. Right as I was preparing for what was supposed to be an ordinary family reunion. An ordinary family reunion. Where everyone still thought of me as that little girl with too many dreams and not enough sense. The one who would never grow up. The one who was always chasing a pipe dream in their eyes. I had seen it all before, the pity in their eyes, the condescending smiles, the barely disguised concern masked as advice. The family who only ever saw me as the underachiever. The one who never followed the path laid out for me. So, when I received the invitation, embossed in gold and sent with the usual fanfare, I couldn't help but feel a wave of bitter amusement. They still didn't know who I was. A few days before the reunion, I had received an email that flipped my world upside down. The kind of email that made me sit frozen, staring at the screen, unable to breathe for a moment. Vanessa Sinclair, the new face of digital art, her NFT empire valued at $4.2 billion. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a fluke. This wasn't some get-rich-quick story that might fade away in a few months. This was real, and for the first time in years, I let myself feel a rush of pride, followed immediately by a sharp pang of guilt, because I had spent 15 years hiding this success. In a way, I had been playing the role they assigned me, the artist who couldn't make it. I was sitting at my desk in my penthouse, a view of the New York skyline outside my window, the invitation to the reunion sitting in front of me like a cruel reminder of everything I had been pretending to be. The gold-embossed letters on the invitation felt like a symbol of the life I had kept them in the dark about. I knew this would be the day my family would finally discover who I really was. And, in a way, it was both terrifying and exhilarating. I had built this empire without anyone's help. There had been no trust fund, no handouts. I didn't come from the kind of family where your success is taken for granted. No, I had done it all myself. I had chosen silence over validation. Letting them believe that I was just another struggling artist. Letting them laugh at my dreams while quietly building a billion-dollar empire behind their backs. I had stayed silent because, deep down, I knew they would never understand it. They were too caught up in their own conventional ideas of success to ever look at me as more than the failure. But the world had changed, and I had changed with it. I had built something that had the power to change the way people looked at art, investments, and creativity. And that wasn't something you could just ignore. Suddenly, a sharp knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. My assistant's voice broke through my contemplation, snapping me back to reality. "Vanessa, your brother Robert is on the line again." I let out a heavy sigh, leaning back in my chair. Robert, my older brother, the golden child. The one who always did exactly what was expected of him. He followed in Dad's footsteps, got his MBA, joined the family firm, and played the game perfectly. Now he was the CEO of one of the largest finance firms in the country. And yet all he ever saw me as was the disappointment. The dreamer who couldn't make it in the real world. I had been dodging his calls all morning. Ever since the Forbes article went live, he had been calling nonstop, demanding an explanation. "Vanessa, we need to talk," he snapped when I picked up the phone. His voice was strained, tight with frustration. "I just got a call from Business Insider asking about my billionaire sister. Care to explain what the hell is going on?" I could hear the irritation in his voice, but what struck me more was the underlying fear. Fear that he didn't understand how this had all happened. How I had gone from a failure in their eyes to a billionaire in the world's. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the bustling city below. I could feel a small smile tug at the corner of my lips, the kind that I couldn't help but let slip when I thought about how different my reality was now compared to what they believed. "You'll find out soon enough, Robert. Just wait for the article." Like everyone else, there it was. The game was up. I could feel the weight of his expectations, the years of disappointment, all crashing down on him through the phone. I could almost hear his breath catch on the other end of the line, the shock starting to settle in. Robert had always been the one who had everything handed to him. He had never had to fight for what he wanted. He played by the rules, and the rules rewarded him. Meanwhile, I had spent 15 years outside of the system, outside of their expectations, building something that was worth more than all of their safe choices combined. I could almost picture him pacing back and forth in his office, his mind reeling. It wasn't anger I heard in his voice. It was confusion, pure and simple. The kind of confusion that comes when you think you know everything about someone, and then, suddenly, you realize you don't. "I don't get it," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "How did you hide this for so long? How could you keep something like this a secret?" I took a deep breath, letting the question hang in the air for a moment. "You never bothered to look closer, Robert. None of you did." I could feel my heart beat a little faster, but this time it wasn't because I was nervous. It was because I had finally said it. For all those years of pretending, of playing the part of the failure in their eyes, I had finally put it out there. The truth was out. There was no going back now. I had spent too many years letting them believe that my success wasn't real, letting them think that I was still that dreamer who would never make it. But the truth was, I wasn't just another artist struggling to make ends meet. I had built something that would leave a legacy. I wasn't some fleeting moment in the art world. I was a force, and now everyone would know. But that didn't make it any easier. I could already feel the weight of the upcoming family reunion pressing down on me. It wasn't just about revealing my success, it was about confronting all of them. About facing the people who had always doubted me and showing them who I had become. A small part of me almost wanted to apologize for hiding it for so long. But I knew better. I hadn't done it for them. I had done it for me. I had done it for the little girl who wasn't afraid to dream big, no matter how many times people told her she couldn't. But I would admit a small part of me was nervous. Nervous about how they would react. Nervous about how Robert would feel when he finally realized I had succeeded without him. But that was the price of success, wasn't it? You had to be willing to face the consequences of stepping out of the shadows. I guess you'll just have to wait and see, Robert. Like everyone else, the day of the reunion finally arrived. I sat in my private jet, soaring above the clouds, heading to a private island I had purchased years ago. My family had no idea where we were going. They likely assumed it was just another family dinner at some fancy resort. But this wasn't going to be your typical family gathering. It wasn't going to be just another night of awkward small talk and forced smiles. No, this was the day everything would change. As I looked out the window, the sprawling blue skies and fluffy clouds stretched endlessly beneath me. The city was a distant memory, and here I was, heading toward the place that represented everything I had built. Everything I had kept hidden for so long. My thoughts flickered to my family, to their expectations, and to how little they knew about the woman I had become. They thought I was still that naive girl, struggling to find her place. They had no idea that I had crafted my own empire in the shadows, building a life that surpassed anything they could have imagined. My phone buzzed again, the sound of it breaking through my thoughts. It was a message from my mother. I almost didn't want to read it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Vanessa, this Forbes thing, is it true?" I stared at the screen for a few seconds. The words felt like a punch in the gut. There it was, the first crack in their facade. The first sign that they were starting to realize something wasn't right. The first question that revealed how much I had been hiding. I could almost hear the panic in her words, even though they were written. My mother, always so concerned with appearances, now worried about what the world thought of me. I ignored it. Let them wonder. It was time. The island came into view as we descended and my heart raced. The lush, tropical landscape below was an oasis, but it wasn't just the beauty of the place that thrilled me. It was the thought of my family's reaction when they saw it. The grandeur, the luxury, it would hit them like a tidal wave. This wasn't just a vacation. This was a statement. A statement I had been dying to make for so long. The villa sat at the heart of the estate, nestled among towering palm trees, surrounded by crystal-clear pools and meticulously manicured gardens. Everything about this place screamed success in ways I knew would make them uncomfortable. And when they landed, I made sure they would see my name, Vanessa Sinclair's digital empire, displayed so prominently in the sky. It was impossible to ignore. My success, now splashed across the horizon, would be the first thing they saw when they landed. As the Rolls-Royces pulled up to the landing strip, I could see their faces through the windows, a mix of disbelief and confusion. One by one, they stepped off the plane. My father, always so composed, his expression unreadable. Robert, my older brother, with his perfect suit and neatly combed hair, but a furrow in his brow as he looked around at the opulence. And then Olivia, my younger sister, with her perfect little world, her designer handbag clutched tightly in her hand, trying to act unfazed. But I could see it, the shock, the surprise that they were stepping into a world they never imagined I could create. I watched as they walked toward me, their eyes darting around in stunned silence. It was clear they had no words, no understanding of what was happening. This wasn't just a family reunion. This was a reckoning. When they reached me, I didn't immediately say anything. I just let the silence hang in the air, thick with tension. The luxury surrounding us was almost overwhelming. There were moments when I felt a flicker of guilt. But then I reminded myself I had earned every inch of this. They had dismissed me for years, laughed at my dreams, and now they had to see it with their own eyes. Finally, I spoke, breaking the stillness. "Welcome to my empire," I said, my voice steady, but there was a sharpness to it. "This is what happens when you believe in yourself, even when everyone tells you it's just a phase." I saw Robert's jaw tighten, his eyes narrowing. The disbelief in his gaze was almost comical. He hadn't said a word since stepping off the plane, but I could feel his thoughts racing. He had always been the one to follow the rules, to play it safe. But here I was, standing in front of him in a world he couldn't fathom. A world that I had built while he was busy following the family blueprint. But I wasn't done yet. I stepped aside and gestured toward the grand screen behind me, the one that would show them everything they had missed. And then I did something even more shocking. I had prepared a video, a timeline of my journey. A visual representation of everything I had accomplished and every moment they had dismissed. My triumphs, my struggles, and most of all, the words they had said over the years that had made me doubt myself. The video was more than just a summary of my success. It was a reflection of their ignorance. The way they had written me off, over and over again, without ever really understanding what I was doing. As the video started, Robert's eyes immediately flicked to the screen. He looked like he was about to say something, but I cut him off. "Robert, remember when you told me digital art was a phase? Well, this is what a phase can look like when you believe in yourself," I said, my voice dripping with the kind of satisfaction I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. The video played, showing snapshots of my life. The moment I sold my first NFT for $50,000. The time I opened my first gallery with no one but my closest friends supporting me. And then the bigger moments, the first time I hit 7 figures, then 8, then 9. The emails from major tech companies wanting to collaborate. The invitations to speak at conferences. And with every frame, I could see their expressions change. First, it was confusion, then shock, and finally, I saw a flicker of something else, regret. Regret for every time they had doubted me, every time they had mocked my dreams. I could hear the soft gasp from Olivia, the way her breath hitched in her throat. I could see my father's face twist with an emotion I couldn't quite place, but it wasn't pride. It was something darker. And Robert looked like he was about to explode. But he stayed silent. The room was completely still. The only sound was the quiet hum of the video as it continued to play. showcasing my accomplishments, each milestone I had reached, each goal I had surpassed. When the video finally ended, there was an eerie silence. My family stood frozen, unable to process what they had just seen. They were speechless, completely silent. I let the silence stretch out, enjoying the moment. This wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about finally being seen for who I really was. It was about letting them understand that I hadn't been wasting my time. That I had built something extraordinary, something they would never understand. I turned to face them, my arms folded across my chest, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the failure. I didn't feel like the person who was always trying to fit in. I was the one in control now. "Well," I said, breaking the silence at last, "I guess you all have some catching up to do." Knock knock. Now you're about to watch the best part of the story. But before that, make sure to subscribe to my channel so we can keep going together. Dinner was served in a lavish dining room overlooking the ocean, the soft sound of waves crashing against the shore barely audible beneath the hum of conversation. The room was a blend of modern elegance and understated luxury, everything meticulously arranged, from the gleaming crystal glasses to the impeccable arrangement of fresh flowers in the center of the table. The air smelled faintly of fine wine, and the flickering candles added a soft glow to the already extravagant setting. Everything about the evening screamed success, a success that none of them had ever anticipated, let alone understood. I watched as my family took their seats around the long, gleaming table. My father, ever the man of control, settled into his seat with his usual air of authority. Robert, my older brother, sat stiffly, his eyes darting around the room as though trying to make sense of the reality that was unfolding before him. Olivia, my younger sister, looked like she was trying to force a smile, her designer handbag placed carefully beside her, as if it were part of the performance she was putting on. They were all dressed in their finest, wearing clothes that cost more than most people's annual salaries. But in this room, in this moment, their expensive clothes seemed strangely out of place. Like they belonged to a world that had no connection to the one I had built. The contrast between their polished, outward appearances and the raw reality of what I had created was striking. My empire wasn't just about money. It was about vision, innovation, and a relentless pursuit of something greater than the world they had expected for me. And now, as they sat there staring at me, their expressions a mix of disbelief and awe, I knew the truth was finally sinking in. This was the moment when they could no longer deny the life I had built for myself. This wasn't some fleeting success or a phase they could dismiss with a wave of their hand. This was the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and the unshakable belief that I could carve out a place for myself in a world that never believed in me. I leaned back slightly in my chair, letting the silence linger in the air. The tension was palpable, almost suffocating. They didn't know what to say, or maybe they were too stunned to speak. I could feel their eyes on me, the weight of their judgment still lingering. Even now, I broke the silence, my voice steady but tinged with an edge of satisfaction. "So, you see," I began, standing slowly from the table and letting my gaze sweep over the room, making sure each one of them felt the weight of my words. This empire, this success, it wasn't a phase. It was my vision, my dream, and now it's reality. The words hung in the air like a challenge. They had all laughed at me. They had mocked my dreams, called my ambitions naive, and dismissed me as just another artist chasing something that would never amount to anything. I could still hear my father's voice in my head, his words cutting through the years. "It's just a fad. Vanessa, this digital art will never be taken seriously. You're wasting your time." And yet, here I stood, in the midst of the very success they had never believed in. My first NFT collection, sold out in minutes for $1 million. My digital art platforms, worth over $10 billion now, a figure that seemed unfathomable to them. And the cherry on top, my financial investments, some of the most profitable ventures in tech. All of it, everything they had turned their noses up at, had made me one of the most influential people in the digital art space. The room was still. My family sat motionless, as if the weight of my words had physically struck them. Robert looked like he was about to say something, but the words caught in his throat. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the realization that the world had changed and left him behind. Olivia, ever the show-off, had no words. She fidgeted with the edge of her napkin, glancing at my father for guidance, but he was just as speechless as the rest of them. I took a step forward, my heart pounding but my face calm. This was my moment, the one I had been waiting for. My mother was the first to break the silence. She stood up slowly, her hands trembling as she wiped away the tears that had begun to form in her eyes. For years, she had been the one to pity me. The one who couldn't understand why I hadn't just taken the safe route like Robert, why I hadn't followed in my father's footsteps. She had always expressed concern, as mothers do, but her concern had often felt like pity. She couldn't see the bigger picture, couldn't see the passion and drive that had fueled me when everyone else turned away. "Vanessa, we didn't know. We didn't believe," she said, her voice cracking, and for the first time in a long while, I saw my mother as a person. Not just as a parent who had tried and failed to protect me from what she thought were my shortcomings. I nodded, my own emotions stirring as I looked at her. It was the moment I had expected, the moment I knew would come. There was a finality in her words, an admission that the reality she had built in her head for so many years had crumbled away. "I know, Mom," I replied, my voice softer now but still steady. "And that's why I had to do this alone. You were all so focused on what I couldn't do, you never saw what I was building." I could see the pain in her eyes, the regret that she had never truly understood me, that she had never given me the credit I deserved. The guilt in her gaze was palpable, but there was something else. Too, something I hadn't expected. There was pride there, buried beneath the layers of doubt and disbelief. I glanced at Robert, who had been silent up until now. His eyes, wide with a mixture of anger and shock, met mine. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but I could tell that words wouldn't come. He had always been the golden child, the one who had never needed to fight for anything, the one who had always been handed success on a silver platter. And now he was facing the truth that I had succeeded without his help. Without their help and without anyone's validation. "Do you get it now, Robert?" I asked, my voice sharp but not unkind. "All those years you spent telling me to get a real job, to stop dreaming. You never understood. You never saw me for who I really am." The silence in the room deepened. My mother sat back down, her face still a mixture of confusion and pride. Robert finally spoke, his voice low and shaky. I never thought it was real," he admitted, the words hanging heavy in the air. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of vindication and sorrow. "You never thought it was real because you never looked at it the way I did. You never saw what I saw. But that's okay. I didn't do this for you or for anyone else. I did it for me." The dinner continued, but the mood had shifted. There was no more pretense, no more posturing. They were finally seeing me for who I truly was, the woman I had fought so hard to become. And though I had spent years hiding my success from them, in this moment, I knew it had all been worth it. By the end of the night, my family had seen what I had accomplished. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to hide anything. I had spent so long allowing them to view me as the failure, the dreamer who couldn't hold down a real job. The one they thought would eventually crash and burn. I had lived with that image of myself for too long, always second-guessing my worth because of their doubts. Now, I was the one sitting at the head of the table, the one who had changed the game, and they had no choice but to acknowledge it. The room was quiet, but the silence was heavy with something else, realization. They had never seen me like this before. They had never seen me in control of my own narrative, not until now. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had built something remarkable without them, and now I was ready to share it with the world, starting with them. But I wasn't done. This was only the beginning. What I had accomplished so far was just the tip of the iceberg. What they saw tonight, the things I showed them about my success, was nothing compared to the future I had planned. I had only scratched the surface. "Tomorrow," I told them, standing from my chair, my voice calm but firm, "we'll take a tour of the island. And I'll show you the future of digital art. The future I built while you were all too busy doubting me." The words felt powerful as they left my lips, a promise of what was yet to come. But it wasn't just about showing them the island, the success I had built. It wasn't even just about proving to them that I wasn't a failure. It was about showing them what I had always known, that my vision wasn't just a fleeting moment. It wasn't a dream. It was something that could change the world. The room was still. I could feel their eyes on me, their disbelief slowly turning into a quiet kind of admiration. This was the part of me they'd never truly known, the part of me that was unshakable. That didn't need their approval anymore. I had been waiting for this moment, waiting to finally stand tall in the face of their doubts. But even as I watched them process the magnitude of what I had achieved, there was still a part of me that couldn't help but feel a little hesitant. It wasn't about my success. It was about how they would take it. They had been so used to seeing me as a dreamer, as someone who didn't fit into their world. How would they respond now? Would they embrace it? Or would they resent me for making them confront their own limitations? As the evening continued, the conversation shifted. There was an underlying current of respect growing in the room. But it wasn't loud or overt. It was a quieter shift, like a ripple in a pond that slowly expanded as the night wore on. My father, for the first time, looked at me with something that resembled pride. It was fleeting, but it was there. It was all I needed. I couldn't help but notice how different everything felt now. The weight of their expectations, the constant scrutiny, had been lifted off my shoulders. And for the first time, I realized that my success wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about proving to myself that I could do it. I had built something great. I had fought for it, bled for it, and sacrificed so much along the way. And now, I was finally living the life I had always envisioned. As the reunion came to a close, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. Free from their expectations. Free from their judgments. It wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could build something great, something that could stand on its own and change the course of my future. They all began to trickle out of the room. Each of them lost in their thoughts, processing everything they had learned tonight. Some of them were still in shock, some were starting to come to terms with it. But I could see the change in their faces. No longer could they dismiss me. No longer could they look down on my dreams. I stood in the dining room, looking out over the ocean. The lights from the villa reflecting off the water like a million possibilities stretching out before me. I could hear the sound of waves crashing gently in the distance. A soothing rhythm that matched the beat of my heart. Tomorrow, I would show them what I had built. Tomorrow, I would show them the future. But right now, in this moment, I felt a quiet peace settle over me. This was my world now. I had worked so hard to get here, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged in it. I was no longer the one who needed to hide, the one who always felt like an outsider in her own family. Tomorrow was the beginning of the rest of my life, and I was ready for it. What do you think about the story? I'd love to hear your thoughts or any feedback you have in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next amazing story I have coming up. Thank you so much for sticking with me till the end. Your support means the world. See you in the next one.